Yo, what's going on, folks? It's me again, Aversal here, back with another video. We're back with another video. And today's video, I've always seen this concept, bounce back at me quite often. I see it in the comments. It's like, yeah, I sort of understand this, but and yeah, listen, I understand. I get it. Of course, you read the title. You already know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about return. I'm talking about continue. I'm talking about break. For you beginners out there, this stuff can seem like complete gibberish almost. Like, what the heck? Where, when do I use this? And that's basically what I'm going to cover in this video today. Hopefully, this clears up any misunderstandings so you know when you got to use it, how it works. Am I using this correctly? You're going to know if you're using it correctly today, okay? So let's talk about it. We're going to open up a script. So we're going to go to server script service. We're going to open up this new script here, okay? We're going to get rid of this print hello world. We're way past that. Let's be honest, we don't need to deal with this. So let's talk about return, okay? So return is a keyword. And what that means is that you can kind of use it anywhere, but it has a specific purpose. That's essentially what I mean by keyword. You don't need to think of it in any other way. So when I say keyword, it's all I'm saying. It's a built-in word in this language that can be used pretty much anywhere, but it does have a specific purpose. It's kind of like task.wait. It's like you can technically use it anywhere, but it's like you don't want to just use it anywhere. You know what I mean? So you do want to know where you're going to put it. So that's what I mean by a keyword. This isn't a keyword. Task.wait, that's not a keyword. And if you're smart, if you're extra smart, you were paying attention, you would know that task.wait is a function. Why? This parentheses. Yes, just like print. Print is a function. What is return? No parentheses. Is it a function? No, it's not. But we're going to talk about return. All right, enough dilly-daddling. Let's talk about return. So, first of all, let's talk about return, what return does. So, as I said, return is a keyword. The purpose of it is to simply exit out of a block of code. And there's a optional part of return that allows you to simply do something before you get out of that block of code. So for instance, if I create a function and we're going to add some stuff, and you've seen functions before. This is nothing new, right? Maybe that is because I just made a huge mistake for some reason there. Why is this not working? Sorry, I just got a new keyboard. I'm getting used to it. Okay, so we can go ahead and we can say, all right, we're gonna print. I don't know, 2 plus 5. All right, some pretty complicated stuff, I know, but listen, I'm getting to the point here. So here's the point. We're gonna go ahead and just return. And already you might be like, okay, well, I just heard your definition. You said, okay, well, return is a keyword. It basically gets out of a block of code, and optionally, if you want, you can add something that you're going to return with it. And here, well, it doesn't look like you're returning anything. Okay, so it's just going to print 2 plus 5 if we call the function, because we're calling a function inside of another function. So this will run no problem. So what is it? Add some stuff. We're going to go ahead and we're going to run, and voila, we get what we want. All right, this is pretty simple stuff. So you might be like, okay, well, what's the point in adding return? Well, yeah, there's not really a point here. But what we could do is we could just, well, why don't we just return print 2 plus 5? You know what? That's cool. Let's just do that. And you'll see that that this will basically, by our logic of our definition, it's still gonna do this. Why? Because when you return, once again, you're getting out of this block of code, and before you get out of that block of code, we're going to go ahead and just do this. Now, it's different from just putting print 2 plus 5. So let's say I just did this, print 2 plus 5. What we could then do is we could say, well, let's go. How about I want to do something down here? I want to go ahead and just print 2 plus 9. All right, because I have another question. I want to make sure that I'm getting this math right. Okay, very complicated stuff. Not stuff you could just do in your head that easily. All right. So we have these two functions that we want to go ahead and run. We can do that easily. So if we run, boom, 7, 11. All right. Not too shabby. Now, what if I did this? Uh-oh, we got an error. What's going on? Why is the script screaming at us? Here's why. Return is special. Okay, so what it does is we want to get out of this block of code. So if we get out of this block of code, is this going to run? No, because it's under it, right? So if we return, it says, okay, we got to get out of this block of code. But before we do that, we got to make sure that we do this. Whatever's next to return. But what about what's under return? Well, no. You can only return one thing when you're returning. That's what you got to remember. So when you return, it's always important to note that if you return something, you can't just go ahead and return something else after that thing. You can't do that. So you can only return one thing if you do return, because you're trying to get out of this block of code, so anything under this should be pointless. So print plus 2 plus 9, there's basically no point of it being there. Because if you're returning, you're saying, okay, well, I want to get out of this function, this block of code. But before I go ahead and get out of that block of code, I want to make sure that we go ahead and just do this little function here, okay? Now, we're going to go back to our fourth video of this series, I think, episode 4, okay? This is going to be like a supplement video for that. This is actually going to really help your intuition. So let's add some stuff. But now let's go ahead and just add some parameters, which are just temporary variables for use in a function. That's essentially what they are, okay? So let's go ahead and just return a plus b. Let's not do that. Let's actually go ahead and just print a plus b. So print a plus b, that's great. So we just assume that a and b are numbers. So we go ahead and let's replace the numbers. So 3 and 5. What that's going to do is, well, we have a and b. We just create this function, and then, okay, well, down here we say, okay, well, we want to go ahead and call this function. Okay, let's go back up. Let's run this function. So 3 and 5 should replace these two. Let's go ahead and just do this math here. So print 3 plus 5. Essentially, that's what the function does, right? It's bottom-up kind of analysis of, if we're thinking in terms of like what the script's doing. It says, okay, well, we got this function. Okay, well, we'll just save that in case we call it later, and we'll save its name so that if we call that name, okay, well, now we'll know what function we're talking about. Okay, well, we did call it down here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back up to this function that we saved earlier. Okay, so it seems like the user wants 3 and 5, so we'll do 3 and 5 for here. Okay, so what do they want done here? So we're going to print a plus b. Well, we know what a and b are, so let's just go ahead and replace those. Okay, so 3 plus 5. All right, let's do that math, and let's go ahead and print it. And that's what the script does, right? Basically, on a very high level, that's essentially what it does, okay? Now let's go ahead and return a plus b. Okay, that's a little different. So let's go ahead and run. It'll do the same thing, right? Let's see. No, where is our number? Where did it go? Why isn't it printing? I don't see print anywhere, so why would it print? So what is going on here? What does return do? Let's talk about it. All right, we got the function. Cool. So we got this return a plus b. There's some mysterious language going on here. I don't know what's going on here. So add some stuff. Okay, the user wants to call this function. Add some stuff. Okay, well, we should still get 8, but we can't see it. Because essentially what it's saying is, okay, we want to go back up to this function. So 3 and 5, we're replacing the parameters with our arguments again, right? Return 3 plus 5. So it says return 8. How do we explain this in terms of what the computer is, in terms of what the computer is doing, okay? So let's take a look. What is the computer doing? Well, it's saying, okay, return 3 plus 5, so return 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them this number back when they call it. But the reason we can't see it is because we're not printing anything. If we just say, like, I'll give you an example. Local number equals 5. Well, we're not going to see it if we run, but it's there. It exists, but we can't see it in the output. So we have to say, like, print number, right? Okay, well now we can see it. Great. So that's why we can't see it, but the number is there when we call the function. Remember, it's bottom up. So we start, okay, well, the user said they want to call this function, they want to replace the parameters, they want to return, so it says we want to get out of this function. But before we do that, we want to make sure that the function gives us this, whatever this is, back when we call it, right? So it's basically like, okay, well, we want to get this out of the function when we get out of it. So when we call it, it's going to return this thing to us when we call it, essentially. So how do we go ahead and print this? Well, we just say local. You don't have to do it my way. I mean, you could just do print this the function inside of this print function. We do the same thing. So it's going to print 8, right? But I like to just kind of make a variable like local result. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Excuse me for that. Holy smokes. Oh my goodness. What is happening today, guys? Print result, right? Great. There it is. Okay, so we'd get the same thing, right? It's gonna print 8. Okay, yeah, okay, just forget that, the fact that I just did not add my numbers again. Yeah, okay, so it's gonna give us 8. And, okay, yeah, like, if you're gonna call a function with parameters and then you don't define the parameters, like, maybe you should think about adding some parameters, okay, guys? So, make sure you remember to do that. Might help you out a little bit. Not being a doofus like me. But you'll see a lot of people will do this instead, right? They'll say like local result equals A plus B, right? And then they'll say like return result. What am I doing? Holy smokes! Result there, and then we'll say like, okay, we're gonna print uh, this function, add some stuff, and then we'll do our like stuff, the numbers there, so like 3 and 5. Sorry, I just had burp there. Let's see. And then we'll get the same thing, right? So we'll just quickly go over this again. Yeah, so basically, function adds some stuff. All right, so we're gonna, first of all, the script is gonna read this function before any calls even take place. Okay, we got these parameters here. We're using these parameters, which are just temporary variables. So local result equals A plus B. Okay, sure. So we're gonna go ahead and store this math inside of this variable. And so result is going to hold the number that we're adding up here, okay, when we replace the parameters with the arguments. Return result. So it says, okay, we want to get out of this function here. We're done with it. But before we do that, we want to make sure that the function gives this number back. So that when we call it, we're actually going to get something back when we call it. So that's why return is so cool, is because we can just say, okay, we want to make sure that when we call this function and we have our like arguments here and we go through, when we return something, it basically means we want the function to just give us like that specific value back when we call it. And I'll give you just another quick example. So let's just say like local function print print stuff, and then we'll just like do that, right? And then we'll return we're just going to return a string, and it's just going to be hello world. There's, like my poorly executed hello world there. So, and what that's essentially going to do is it's going to allow us to set the function itself to just be that string, essentially. I mean, that's essentially what it is, because if we print stuff as a function, what do we get? We get the string. That's what we get. The function essentially becomes replaced with the string that we're returning. And that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that return essentially says, okay, we want to get out of this block of code, but before we do, we want to make sure that the function knows what to give us as a result. Because otherwise, if I just said local text or local string equal, sorry about that, hello world, And then we just got out of the function, like, what am I doing with this? I'm doing nothing, right? Like, if we run it again, nothing's going to happen. That's what return does. It essentially says, okay, we want to make sure that the function gives us something, right? Okay, well, we're just going to we're going to give them this thing back, okay? It just may seem confusing with this whole print thing, but if we say print stuff, um, this print stuff essentially is just going to give us hello world, but you're not going to see it, just as you won't see a variable, when you define it. You still have to print the variable. So maybe if you mess around a little bit with that, it'll make a little more sense. Hopefully I explained that about as good as you can get it to be explained. And oh yeah. So there's one super important thing you got to realize about return. Okay, so this is another big thing you got to remember that will save you hours of suffering. Okay, because I had to learn this the hard way back when I was still like not amazing at coding. So return is special also in the way that if we express it in a while loop, and we have like an if, x. I'll set up a quick example here. Just 1 second, 1 second. All right, so I am back. So I am back. Um, we're back with this cool little function here, and this is gonna really help us understand return and honestly why you should not use it, why you should pay attention to where you're putting return. Okay, so because I've done this before, even if you haven't done this before, it's still really good to know this. So we create a function called Bob. We create a variable x equals 0. While true do, x is plus equal to 1. Sure, we're going to print x. Then if at any point x is 5, we're going to go ahead and just return out of this loop. But before we do that, we're going to print x equals 5, okay? We're going to end. So if it's not equal to 5 yet, we're going to just breeze past this if statement, and we're just going to test out wait 1, and then we're going to go through this loop again and again and again until this happens, and then we're just going to poof out of this while loop. And then at the very end, we're going to print Bob. So this is outside of the while loop. As you can see, after the while loop is done, we're going to go ahead and just print Bob. And let's see what happens. We run, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We get x equals 5, but where's Bob? It's a great question you're asking. Well, here's a special thing about return. It doesn't just get out of the while loop, but it also gets out of the function. That is why you need to pay attention to where you're using return, because when you return, the script is automatically assuming that you're returning out of the function because it's used in functions. It should only ever be used in functions for the most part, unless you really know what you're doing. It's not just going to get out of this while loop because this keyword is designed for functions, not for while loops. It can be used in while loops, but if you're using return in this while loop, you got to pay attention to what you really mean when you're using this. So instead, we should use break. Break is a special keyword used for loops. It's specifically designed for loops. So when we use this keyword, we think, okay, well, we're in a loop. Where's the nearest loop? Okay, here's the loop that we're in. So we're going to just get out of this loop. And then we run, and let's see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bob, oh my goodness, the function continued as usual with no issues. But if we use return, this is not going to work because we're getting out of the function. Right, we want to get out of this block of code, but before we do that, we just want to print that x equals 5. Right, of course, we want to, oh, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. So before we get out of this function, we want to just print x equals 5. And sure enough, we did that earlier, but just don't ever think that when you return print x equals 5 that you're only local to this while true do loop. You're actually talking about the function that the loop is in. So you have to watch what words you're using. So return, it's a keyword specific to functions. Break is a keyword that is specific to loops. Continue is as well, and I'll give you an example here. If x is not equal to 5, we'll say like not equal to 5, then we're going to go ahead and just continue. Sorry, this is embarrassing, but continue, else we're going to go ahead and we're just going to break. Or sorry, we're going to do else if x equals to 5. There, okay? Then we're going to go ahead and break, okay? And if you know your else and else if statements, you would know why that errored. Task.wait 1. It is simply because else is a default last resort, which means it's if this doesn't run, this will always run, which means it's literally on the first execution of this loop, it's going to break out of the loop, which means this will never run, essentially, is what I'm saying. So we need to make sure that conditions are met before break will happen. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to have local x equals 0. We're going to go into this loop. We're going to say that x is just going to equal to itself plus 1. We're going to print x in its new value. Then we're going to say, well, if x is not equal to 5, then we're just going to go ahead and continue. So since it's equal to 1 after the first loop, well, it's just going to go back up. Then it's going to do it again. It's going to do it again. It's going to do it again. Okay, well, now it's 5. Okay, then we're going to break. So the thing about this is that if you have a keen eye, you're going to know that task.wait 1 is it's never going to run. Why? Because continue basically just blocks off anything underneath it and just skips ahead to the next loop. So basically here's what's going to happen top to bottom. So, okay, well, x is plus equal to 1. So let's assume it's 0. So now it's 1. Okay, so 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. That was just 1. So now x is 1. So print 1, so 1, if x is not equal to 5. So if 1 is not equal to 5, then we're going to continue. So what's going to happen is we're going to get to this command. We're going to go back up to the top. Okay, now it's 2, print 2. If 2 is not equal to 5, then continue. It's going to continue, boop, boop, boop. Okay, well now it's 5. So if 5 is not equal to 5, then continue. Well, it's not equal to 5. It is equal to 5. So we're going to do else if x is equal to 5, then we're going to break. Okay, well, we hit the break, boom, we're out of the entire while loop, and now we're going down to print bop. And obviously this task.wait is useless because it's never gonna run. So I think a better thing we could do is just print task dot wait 1 like that. We're just gonna run, boop, 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 boom. And there it is. That's what continue does. Continue basically just says, okay, well, we don't want to do anything else with this loop, this iteration of the loop, basically the specific number loop that we're on. So like loop 1, loop 2, loop 3, like that, right? That's what I mean by iteration. So whatever number loop we're on, we just want to go ahead and just skip past that loop. So that means nothing else below this in the loop is going to run. And we're just going to go back to the top, and we're just going to repeat the process with all the information from the previous loop still saved. Anything that was above continue. That's what it does, essentially. So that is about it for this video. I hope that helped you out. I seriously do. I hope that helped you out. I hope I explained return about as good as I could. I tried my best to explain it as good as I could. If you have any further questions about return, do leave comments down below. I really like talking about, stuff like that, especially stuff that I struggled with when I was starting scripting. So, and also join the Discord server if you want to reach out to fellow scripters, get some help. That about wraps it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, whatever. But that's about it. So I hope this helped you out. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. See you guys later. Peace.